Xi Jinping is currently speaking.
Their contribution to tackling climate change. Second, we need to raise ambition and foster a new architecture of climate governance where every party does its part. Following the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities, all countries need to maximize actions in light of their respective national circumstances and capabilities. At the same time, developed countries need to scale up support for developing countries in financing, technology, and capacity building. Third, we need to boost confidence and pursue a new approach to climate governance that highlights green recovery. Mountains and rivers green are mountains of silver and gold. It is important to encourage green, low-carbon ways of life and production and seek development opportunities and impetus from green development. China has made important contributions to adopting the Paris Agreement and has made active efforts towards implementing it. I announced in September that China would scale up its nationally determined contributions and adopt more vigorous policies and measures. We aim to peak carbon dioxide emissions before 2030 and achieve carbon neutrality before 2060. Today, I wish to announce some further commitments for 2030. China will lower its carbon dioxide emissions per unit of GDP by over 65% from the 2005 level. Increase the share of non-fossil fuels in primary energy consumption to around 25%. Increase the forest stock volume by 6 billion cubic meters from the 2005 level and bring its total installed capacity of wind and solar power to over 1.2 billion kilowatts. China always honors its commitments. Guided by our new development philosophy, we will promote greener economic and social development in all aspects while pursuing high-quality development. We will take solid steps to implement the targets just announced and contribute even more to tackling the global climate challenge. Colleagues, as a Chinese poem reads, heaven does not speak and it alternates the 4 seasons. Earth does not speak, and it nurtures all things. Earth is our only and shared home. Let us build on past achievements, work together to make steady progress in implementing the Paris Agreement, and launch a new journey for global climate actions. Thank you.
Chères Sébastiennes et chers amis, 5 ans depuis les accords de Paris et je suis depuis Bruxelles heureux de vous retrouver de manière vite.
It has been 5 years since the signing of the Paris Agreement, and I'm delighted to be in Brussels with good news and a strong message. Yesterday, the 27 EU leaders met and made an ambitious commitment, which was clear, to reduce emissions by at least 55% by 2030. A year ago, in December 2019, we committed to be climate neutral by 2050. We're going to remain completely mobilized because this is a complete paradigm shift. And this is the idea behind the financial agreement in Europe. 108 billion euros mobilized over the next few years, and at least 30 billion will be focused on the climate change challenge. For us, it's a society project. It's a prosperity project, which is demonstrated as part of the European Green Deal, which is a whole host of ambitious measures to develop innovation, to support jobs, and to increase our standard of living. We also need to act on the diplomatic front. We know very well that multilateral mobilization, international cooperation will be key. And here we can see that systematically, whether this be as part of economic and trade partnerships, we want to encourage all of our partners around the world to join us in our ambitions. There's a challenge for our generation to benefit from our collective knowledge and determination so that we can be up to the job. And so that we can be up to the challenge, indeed, to also demonstrate our respect for humanity and for generations to come. Thank you.
Dear guests of the Climate Ambition Summit, 55%. That is now indeed the 27 European leaders have signed up to the European Commission's proposal for taking climate action to a new level of ambition. Together with the arrangement on our next 7-year budget, the 55% agreement is a go-ahead for scaling up climate action across our economy and society. We have already started, from boosting renewable energy, creating hydrogen valleys, and producing the most sustainable batteries, to launching a wave of building innovation, decarbonizing transport, and protecting and restoring our nature. We are serious about getting our economy on a more sustainable path. But this isn't a task for Europe alone. Europe only accounts for less than 10% of global emissions. Climate change is more than a European issue. It is a human issue. And today there is a global movement for climate action. A movement that counts on powerful nations, but also on countless cities, NGOs, people of goodwill. Europe wants to contribute to the movement and make it grow. We want to work with all those who agree that we must put a price on carbon. We are ready for more ambitious commitments with like-minded countries. And we are supporting developing countries to help them decouple their emissions and their economic growth, just like we are doing in Europe. And it is more than cutting emissions. It is about green finance. It is about restoring biodiversity. It is about a new circular economy that creates jobs and prosperity while preserving nature. Many things have to change so that our planet can remain the same for the next generation. 55% is Europe's contribution on the road to Glasgow. Let's walk this road together.
Fellow leaders and colleagues, I'm honored to speak at this Climate Ambition Summit 5 years after the world came together in Paris and embraced a solution to the climate crisis that included, and I quote, 1.5 to stay alive, unquote. That is the mantra you must know of small island developing states like Barbados. Our optimism and joy in Paris now seems short-lived. Global greenhouse gas emissions continue to rise unabated, and our window to end the crisis is closing. As I speak, the 30th named storm of this record-setting hurricane season has ripped through Latin America, while COVID-19 related debt is consuming our resources, some that was intended for climate mitigation, I might add. Barbados's new nationally determined contribution of becoming fossil fuel free by 2030 at best and carbon neutral at worst is an even more ambitious target than that of 2015. My government has created the enabling environment for this transition through legislation, incentives, and empowering Barbadian citizens to participate in our energy revolution. Our vision is that by 2030, most Barbadian homes will have solar PV panels on their roofs and an electric vehicle in their garage. Despite our efforts, the fact is that the level of mitigation ambition contained in your NDCs will determine the fate of countries like my own. For unless the climate crisis is addressed, there will be no Build Back Better for countries and economies like mine. Frankly, at the global level, we need to move from placatory rhetoric to real, effective action, or numerous nations across the world will be robbed of their future. I would like to believe that the major emitters are not capable of what would in essence be close to climate genocide. I'd like to believe that we are visible and indispensable for them. Let us therefore together act on the responsibility which the climate crisis imposes on all nations and all peoples. The time is now. I thank you.
Your Excellencies, I'm delighted for the opportunity to articulate Kenya's position in this event, which marks the 5th anniversary of the Paris Agreement, to rally much-needed greater climate action and ambition. Your Excellencies, Kenya, just like other vulnerable countries, is experiencing frequent and intense bouts of drought and torrential rains, leading to floods with far-reaching consequences on communities, ecosystems, and infrastructure. It is estimated that the loss associated with these natural calamities could be as high as 3% of GDP annually. So notwithstanding the challenges we as a country are faced with because of COVID-19 pandemic, we are still on schedule to update our NDC before the 31st of December this year, which was the deadline. Our first NDC had set a 30% emission reduction by 2030. Our updated NDC commits to abate greenhouse gas emissions by 32% by 2030, which is in line with our Sustainable Development Agenda and our national circumstances. The time frame set for the implementation of the NDC is up to 2030, with milestones targeted in 2025. To implement the required mitigation and adaptation actions in the updated NDC, we will require approximately $62 million between 2020 and 2030, broken down as follows: mitigation, $18 million, and adaptation, $44 million. Our first NDC was fully conditional to international support. However, for our updated NDC, Kenya commits to support 20% of the mitigation budget from our domestic resources and seeks the international support for the balance. As countries around the world continue to rebuild their economies and communities during the COVID-19 pandemic, my government commits to building back better in ways that increase resilience to future health and climate shocks. And I am happy to announce that Kenya has commenced the process of developing its climate change and development long-term strategy, and in this regard, my government is demonstrating leadership by being among the first in Africa to develop an LTS. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude my remarks, it is my hope and expectation that the G20 countries and large corporations, which collectively account for more than 80% of global emissions and 85% of the global economy, will announce ambitious NDCs and long-term strategies. Without these ambitious announcements, the race to 2030 and the 2050 Paris Agreement targets will be futile. In this regard, I wish to salute those countries and corporations that have already made ambitious targets. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Excellencies, this summit marks the fifth anniversary. Of the Paris Agreement, the most ambitious step in our fight against climate change. Looking to set our sights even higher, we must also not lose sight of the past. We must not only revise our ambitions, but also review our achievements against targets already set. Only then can our voices be credible for future generations. Excellencies, I must humbly share with you that India is not only on track to achieve its Paris Agreement targets, but to exceed them beyond expectations. We have reduced our emission intensity by 21% over 2005 levels. Our solar capacity has grown from 2.63 gigawatts in 2014 to 36 gigawatts in 2020. Our renewable energy capacity is the fourth largest in the world. It will reach 175 gigawatts before 2022. And we have an even more ambitious target now, 450 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity by 2030. We have also succeeded in expanding our forest cover and safeguarding our biodiversity. And on the world stage, India has pioneered two major initiatives: the International Solar Alliance and the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. Excellencies, in 2047, India will celebrate 100 years as a modern independent nation. To all my fellow residents of this planet, I make a solemn pledge today. Centennial India will not only meet its own targets, but will also exceed your expectations. Thank you. Thank you very much.